This is in my district, so I'd like to make a comment about that. To date, the majority of the City Council has not voted to become involved in the litigation between the Umstead Coalition and the RDU Airport Authority in Wake Stone related to the quarry lease. We understand there will be a hearing in Wake County Superior Court next month. Some of us on council continue to believe it's important for the city to ask to join in the litigation as a party and to ask the court to require that the city and the other local government owners of the Oddfellows Tract approve the quarry lease. I would therefore like to make several motions related to that litigation, but before doing so, and without discussing matters that would infringe on attorney-client privilege, I would ask the city attorney's opinion as to whether the city would have standing to intervene in the lawsuit and whether the city would have viable legal claims if council wanted to pursue this course.
Okay, let me jump in real quickly. I obviously haven't been here. I have not been privy to your closed session discussions other than what I've read, social media. But in the past, any discussion around any sort of a lawsuit or legal action occurs in closed session. So I don't think that it is appropriate in any way to have that discussion, especially sort of putting the attorney on the spot in open session.
Well, I've actually talked to the attorney about this, and I'd like to have her answer the question.
Okay.
If she wouldn't mind.
I don't think we should be talking about anything pertaining to a lawsuit in open session.
So I'm not.
We've never done it
So
before.
the question isn't about the lawsuit. I guess her question,
Yeah.
if I understand her question is, she's not asking you to whether or not we're asking to be part of the lawsuit. She's asking you if we have
standing
That is
and a viable
relevant to the
claim.
lawsuit.
I disagree.
So,
I disagree too. I think we need to get this out and get it clarified.
well, this is back to, this is about governing, not
This is about
politicking.
governing, and this is about governing transparently in front of the people of the city.
Well, I'm just asking for the chance to be brought up to speed. I'm asking.
There was a memo that came out from the city attorney on Friday that covers a lot of this
It
material,
does cover a
confidential.
lot of it,
And so
we
that-
need to have that discussion in closed session. I mean, I'm just asking for the courtesy to be allowed the time to be brought up to speed in closed session. We'll have an item about RDU on closed session already. That gives us the opportunity to have this discussion. That's what I'm asking.
Then I would like to,
Well, I'll just say, unless there's a motion to not proceed, I'd like for us to proceed.
Well, okay, one thing that that was in your memo was the fact that we cannot, there are certain things that aren't on the agenda. So we can't make motions, unless there is a motion to add something to the agenda.
okay, I move to amend the council agenda to add the following item. Request that the city attorney file a motion to intervene in the pending quarry lease lawsuit in Wake County Superior Court.
Well, I'm going to oppose that, and it has nothing to do with whether we join the lawsuit or not. It has to do with two things. One, I'd like some more information on what all has been happening, and two, I think that's a closed session discussion, so I
Well-
won't support that.
I'll second the motion, but I have some comments to make too. They're not closed session comments, but there's been a lot of conversation between all of the city councilors on this, and it really is unfortunate that you haven't been here for all of that, but you've been back a while. You've had hours and hours to discuss the circumstances with the city attorney, and so I think it is appropriate for us to have this conversation in public without getting into the closed session item. We've already discussed this with the city attorney, that it is appropriate for us to have this
Okay,
conversation.
then there's a motion and a second to add this item to the agenda.
But before we do that, I
No.
would like to make a comment,
Okay.
okay? So I don't want to discuss council's closed session deliberations, but in my conversations with legal sources close to the conversation, it's clear that Raleigh does have standing to intervene and the quarry lease, against the quarry lease, and we do have a reasonable expectation of prevailing against that lease. Now, what we all know for sure, without any doubt, is that there will be an enormous environmental destruction of by this 100-acre quarry. Likewise, no one disputes that it will be impossible to undo the environmental damage caused by the quarry or the long-term negative impacts of the quarry on Umstead State Park. In addition, Raleigh City environmental experts say that the authorities' recent attempt to pass legislation to weaken the nuisance buffer rules within the airport property would have a significant negative impact on our environment, especially our water quality. This represents a disturbing pattern of anti-environmental actions against the land owned by Raleigh citizens and 3 other governments, and suggests that more anti-environmental actions may be on the way. So, is this a political ploy, or is this instead an environmental turning point for our community? The quarry lease has become an important topic only to the extent that it will cause irreparable damage that needlessly to the Oddfellows land that we own and to Umstead State Park for all time. In all my years on council, there has never been such a thoughtless and misguided attack on our environment as this. If ever there was a preventable environmental disaster in our backyards that's worth fighting against, this is it. Now,
Okay.
I'm almost done. Seeking common ground. My first desire is the same as it was in our March 5th motion, to pause the quarry lease, enter into good faith conversations toward an outcome that is good for both the airport and for the environment. Now, up to this point, the Airport Authority has shown no interest in engaging in any conversation with anyone about other alternatives. So I hope that the council will stand up for 2 things, both the long-term environmental interests of our community and the success of our airport. Let's get into that conversation and find a win-win and stop acting like this is, we either have to have a quarry or some other worse outcome. I just don't accept that as a way for us to lead and govern in the city of Raleigh.
So,
I think you diverted. Everybody would prefer a park over a quarry. That's a no-brainer. We all get that. I think my questions that haven't been answered are, what are the impacts of us joining a lawsuit that I don't even have a clue what all the parts are in it? I mean, I have more legal questions, not just the emotional question of whether we like a quarry or not. So I'm going to call the question for the motion, and the second
Ashley-
is to add this
call a question, never mind. You call a question, never mind.
to the agenda. For today? For today.
For
today?
right now.
Okay, all in favor of
Let's hear the motion one
adding-
more time so we can make sure we all understand it before we vote on it.
I move to amend the council agenda to add the following item. Request that the city attorney file a motion to intervene in the pending quarry lease lawsuit in Wake County Superior Court.
That is not what I heard, your first
That's what I read.
motion.
It's
Oh,
the
well,
same
that's
written
thing.
down,
that's
and
her
I-
sec-
and
that
I
was her
seconded
motion.
it.
That wasn't what she said the first.
Okay, so
time.
you're asking
Okay.
us.
Can she read it one more time?
I thought she asked.
What I did ask before I made a motion was, I just wanted to ask the city attorney's opinion as to whether the city would have standing to intervene in the lawsuit and whether the city would have viable legal claims if council wanted to pursue the course.
That was her
That was a
first
question.
That was the question,
That was the
but
question that
is-
you're
That wasn't the
asking to be.
motion.
No.
That
that's
was a
not the
question,
motion.
and the mayor said she
Slapped it
didn't.
down.
So what's
slap
your
me down.
actual motion?
My motion is,
Hold
I'm,
on.
No, her motion is to
Wait a minute.
add to the
Let her say what her
agenda.
own motion is, if
Yeah.
that's fine.
I move to amend the council agenda to add the following item. Request that the city attorney file a motion to intervene in the pending quarry lease lawsuit in Wake County Superior Court.
I can't support that motion because you're asking us to make, you're asking, what I'm hearing is that you're asking the attorney to put on the agenda for the attorney to enter into the
It's for us to
lawsuit.
consider it. It's for us to put it on the agenda so that we
So
can
that we
consider
can
it.
talk about it.
So
I just
you
want
wanna-
to add it to the agenda.
So you want to take the lawsuit conversation and bring it to the test out
That
of
was not her
closed
first
session?
question, but the mayor slapped the first question down, so she went to the motion.
I mean, if we could.
Right, I'm trying to understand
We
it so
want to
I
be
know
able
what
to
I'm voting
talk
for.
about it.
And I think it's inappropriate to speak about a legal action against this city in the public format. It's a reserve for closed session, and I think it's inappropriate.
So could,
Okay, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor of adding the item so stated by Counselor Rendell to the agenda? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Raise your hands, please.
Which one? You
which
want the
one?
ayes or the noes?
Do the ayes.
so,
And
So
ca-
the item's not on the agenda.
so I have a question. I'm going to go back to the original question, because it has nothing to do with whether or not we're talking about a lawsuit.
Well-
I want to, Mayor,
Had-
civil, remember?
Yeah,
That's what
I'm
you
just
suggested.
saying.
I'm suggesting that I would like clarification at this table whether or not we currently have standing if we should choose to enter into a lawsuit. That's all I want to know.
And that's not an appropriate,
Mayor?
I'm saying, I
Mayor?
don't think that's appropriate for you to ask
Mayor,
her.
that's your opinion.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
She doesn't have to answer. She can refer that to closed session.
Let me just say this. I do not want to talk about anything that's covered by the attorney-client privilege. I don't want to talk about any merits of any lawsuit. I don't want to talk about whether we'd win or lose or anything else.
That was not my question.
Right, I understand. And there's been a lot of talk out there. I would say that we wouldn't be having this conversation at all if there was no interest of the city. You're on the deed, as been pointed out. There's a lawsuit going on that is trying to determine what rights the city has because you're on the deed. Now, under the intervention rules, you would have, in my opinion, the right to ask the court for it to come in and give a position. So that's as far as I can go in open session. But again, that's not an answer about whether you should or you shouldn't or what the merits will be. All that I am saying is because you're in the deed, under the rules, that you could certainly ask the court the question, can we be heard?
Thank you.